Ladies and gentlemen, theys and thems, my name is Chase, and today I want to talk about religiosity and spirituality within Unitarian Universalism. I want to start off this video by saying that this is completely my opinion. It is not reflective of the Unitarian Universalist Association, and as Unitarian Universalists, we encourage people to have differing opinions. I am not claiming to have the absolute truth. This is the way I interpret and sort of build a framework in my religious and spiritual life, and I would like to share that with you. So, starting with some definitions, what do I mean when I say religious life or spiritual life, and what is the difference between these two? So, the way I'm defining this is religious life is an external expression, it is something shared with other people. For example, going to church once a week, going to a small group or some sort of task force or committee within the congregation. Religious life could be going to worship services or volunteering or in some way, but those things I would categorize as religious expressions. Spiritual life is without other people. It is internal. It is my private reading time, my meditations, my prayers, things that I do behind closed doors that I wouldn't really talk about openly. Now, why am I making this video? I feel that in Unitarian Universalism, we do put a very large emphasis on living in a religious life, going to church every Sunday, and depending on the size of the congregation, there's usually a fair group of task force and subcommittees and those sorts of things to be a part of. But because we allow people the free and responsible search for truth, there's not a whole lot of talk of, oh, you need to pray this sorts of way, you need to meditate this sort of way. I mean, we would discourage the whole there's one way to do thing. But because of that, I feel like it could go left under the radar, if you will. I also think to live a proper religious life, one needs to have a spiritual life to sort of not feel burnout. If you're constantly giving and volunteering and this sorts of way, but you're not refilling yourself, you're not spending that time with yourself and spending time in prayer and meditation and contemplation or whatever your regular practice is, there's going to be a sense of burnout. And there also may be a sense that you're not getting much out of Unitarian Universalism. One thing I find most people understand about Unitarian Universalism is it's just sort of this free anything goes religion, which is not true. It's just not true at all. The covenant we make as Unitarian Universalist is the framework in which we are living our religious life and provides a guidance on how we can live our spiritual life. Being more concrete, with the 6 shared values, we have love at the center of it, meaning in my religious life, I should be expressing love. That can either be through volunteering or taking care of the community in some way. And in my spiritual life, I should also be doing practices that cultivate a sense of love to myself. And if you believe in a God or some other higher power, in that essence as well. I don't imagine too many Unitarian Universalists who believe in a God are praying to a God that is somehow hateful, who is going to punish people for eternity for temporary sins. Because of this, a young Unitarian Universalist, and when I say young, I mean people who recently joined and converted to Unitarian Universalism, not in an age way, can say, oh, well, I'm going to church, but I need something more. And do I have the book recommendation for you? Everyday Spiritual Practice, edited by Scott W. Alexander, and there's a particular one section of this I want to go over. But first, I want to talk about this book. It is sort of the 101s to get into spiritual practice for Unitarian Universalists. It goes over different types of meditations and yogas, and it even mentions karate at some point. I didn't know that could be a spiritual practice, but for this person who wrote that section, it is. And that's good for them. If that's a part of their spiritual life and that's how they cultivate love and, refill their cup in their day-to-day life, good for them. They should. Getting to the section where the reason I put the disclaimer, I think every single person who wants to live a spiritual life needs to have a daily spiritual practice. In my last video, I talked about the benefit of having a spiritual community, having a sacred community, a safe, sacred space to explore religious ideas, and to try finding answers to the big fundamental questions. But with this, I will spend a little bit more time talking about spiritual life because it is, I would say it's even more important for the spiritual aspect of it to have that personal time, that personal connection between the individual and the divine. In Arvid Straub's, forgive me if I'm mispronouncing your name, their section of it, which is called a spiritual maintenance schedule, they have a recommended spiritual maintenance schedule, which I want to talk about a little bit. Once a day, spend 10 to 30 minutes of prayer and or meditation. Once a week, take a day free of obligations or work or rest. This would be called a Sabbath, although I don't care to use that Christian language too much. At least once a month, meet with a group that nurtures your spiritual development. Men's or women's meditation groups, 12-step groups. This is where we're getting into the subcommittees, the interest groups, the Christian Unitarian Universalist cups, those sorts of things. Being a part of these communities and being people who think more theologically like you is very important. There's even one that I'm part of, the Unitarian Universalist Mystics. We meet once a month via Zoom, and I really appreciate that. It's very nice. And at least yearly, take a 3 to 10 day guided retreat away from home at a Christian retreat center, meditation retreat center, yoga camp, or personal growth center. Because I'm not Christian and I have more closer connections to Hindu communities, I tend to find myself in ashrams. But I've even seen some people, this one mentions guided. I don't think it necessarily has to be guided depending on where you're at in your spiritual life. I feel like I'm at a point where I could spend 4 to 5 days in the woods by myself in a mountain, just sleeping in a tent and focusing all my time with devotion and prayer and meditation. But this is where I ask you, my friend, what is beneficial to your spiritual life? Do you prefer the peace and tranquility of meditating? Do you love the expression and the heartfeltness of prayer? Do you like moving your body a little bit and going on walks and maybe, chanting japa with a mantra? Whatever it is you enjoy, whatever is beneficial to your spiritual life, I think it is absolutely important and necessary for Unitarian Universalists to find a spiritual practice that works for them and to do it daily. It is so easy to get burned out and to feel like you're not reaching closer to being loving or divine or living this sort of holy lifestyle if you're not cultivating that daily. Again, this is my opinion, but I don't think going to church once a week on Sunday is enough. Unitarian Universalism allows us to express religiosity and spirituality in a way that we find most beneficial without the dogmatism and the right versus wrong. But that doesn't mean that we're not doing things. This doesn't mean that we don't have these routines and practices to keep us grounded and to keep us in the spirit of love, to nurture our soul or spirit or whatever else the hell you want to call it. I hope this video serves as sort of pushing spirituality and spiritual practice back into the narrative of the Unitarian Universalist consciousness. We focus a lot on political action and social justice and these sorts of things, what I would call religious life, which are important. But there's another aspect to this Unitarian Universalism that maybe we need to refocus on, that we need to revisit every once in a while. If you have a spiritual practice that is beneficial to you, I encourage you to leave it in the comments down below. I invite you to like and subscribe. Thank you for watching, and have a good day.